Agile product development has been a recent trend, especially in the software industry the last few years. Um, Talking to people who've used it in both software and hardware areas, I got some of their experiences, but also did some reading and research to kind of understand what's different, what's unique, how is this a progression compared to what historically has been done. Fortunately or unfortunately, my experiences has been um, closer to an agile approach, as I'm going to describe it, than I really recognized. They didn't know that's what I was doing or we were doing. And so I want to give you some insights about it because I think changing all the names and the roles doesn't really make you agile any more than just doing things that make sense. Um, One of the big things for Agile in their language is having a dedicated product owner. So this is someone beyond a project manager, as is described in Agile. It's someone that just owns it from front to back. Marketing, customer involvement, cost, schedule, the whole thing, understanding requirements. They have that over-encompassing one point of contact that does everything. Um, I think that's a great concept. I think it's hard to find people that are good at that. Um, but myself as a project manager, that was basically the role that I played. I want to make sure the requirements were right for my team. I just didn't blindly accept them. I've certainly understood cost and schedule and worked with that and reported that, but also interacting with the customer all the way from the people hiring us to the end user. Wanted to interact with all those people so I understood what the requirements were and could better understand if I understood how they operated and how they thought that I could bring a little bit more forward to making some of the decisions that we had to make on a day-to-day basis. So a kind of a limited project manager, which is more just an expediter, is one role, and that's probably a useful role in a lot of companies. But the way I experienced it, and I saw most people experience a project manager role, actually wasn't that product owner vernacular from Agile. Um, the second thing, and I made these all P words to start, but I called it progressive requirements. Um, could have just been requirements, but I like the word progressive in there because um, the agile idea is that you basically have user stories, so very simplified requirements um, that kind of give you an idea of what to do, and then you can fill out those details later. The idea of agile is we spend, historically, companies may spend a lot of effort documenting and recording every nit and every detail of how to design an item before they actually start any design work. And how can you know at that given time up front what really the customer is going to like and enjoy and appreciate 9 months, whatever, 3 years later when you finally feel it. Um, so I'll call it the approach in Agile is you certainly got to have a product definition. The product owner certainly understands that, but allowing for progressive requirements. Not everything cast in stone and flowed down every level on day one. And again, in my experience, I saw that we were doing that. We weren't by definition agile, but we were operating that way. We had certain requirements that we were working on that were TBD, to be determined, TBR, to be reviewed. We think that's the number, but it may change, and we want to leave it open-ended to change. So we had that. And we had in the defense industry something called concept of operations. That was the user story. This was a story from the user that we worked and refined with them. How are they actually going to use this? What are the scenarios and processes and steps they need to go through for it to function and serve their purpose? And the user story really doesn't need to change. It may change in time, but at least that was a baseline that all of our requirements bounce to. And then when you write the system requirements or high level things, you don't have to go into everything it needs to do and define absolutely everything. And then, again, I would say on the projects I worked on, It may be 10% of your requirements are fluid. Maybe it's a pretty well-defined thing and only 5% are open or flexible. Maybe it's something totally brand new and 50% can still float because technology may develop or customer feedback may come in. How many are left open is a business decision, but allowing them to progress, because no matter how well defined it is, there's going to be areas of uncertainty. So allow them to progress, allow those to develop. And that's how I lived it before as well. So for me personally, I didn't feel that those were novel approaches. They also emphasize in the Agile world early prototypes. Um, do samples, whatever it might be, get those in front of the customer, which is the key, and that sometimes isn't done, to get the customer feedback so you can progress your requirements. In some of my background, not only did we have drawings or animations on the computer, but we would also go as far as making cardboard mock-ups. We'd make plywood mock-ups. We would not have the full system, but maybe a portion of the system that was critical to us, important to us, that we could test and evaluate on a bench. Get some hands-on on just a part of it. You don't need to prototype the entire system to get customer feedback. Get the customer feedback on the critical areas early. We call that prototyping, but there's a wide variety of software iterations, releases, and different ways to mock up or prototype what you're working on. So those are ones that, and there's kind of a trend, I guess I would say, of pushing to reduce prototypes to speed up product development. I don't think you can cut out prototypes to be faster realistically. You may not get as much customer feedback. You may save some schedule initially until you do the final test and things don't work as expected, or the customer revolts and doesn't like it. So get the small prototypes out there early. Don't reduce to big prototypes. By doing more of that, you can probably reduce the big prototypes, which are the big costs and otherwise, but you have to have a method to reduce prototypes. You can't just cut things that people are used to using without replacing them with something else. Those three, I think, are things from my own personal experiences that I believed in, I've lived, and I continue to encourage. A couple of things that are different than those kind of core project management type concepts. One of the things that Agile talks about is pace, and that they do these sprints that could be a week long or 3 weeks long or somewhere in between, and you only bite off how much work you can accomplish in that period. And so they believe that sprint mentality and the scrums help create that pace. But I can certainly imagine with a bad management or bad support system that they're still going to push too much, whether it's an agile environment or what I call a traditional environment. What you got to have is a management that understands that, or at least will back you with it. I know, and it's either cutting requirements or adding people. Sometimes adding people doesn't make you more efficient, just more communication channels. I know there was a time in my career when there was 3 big objectives that we were being pushed for as a team. And when I looked at those 3, I personally knew we could only accomplish 2 of them with the resources we had within the time frame that I was expecting, that they wanted them. In talking to the team, they confirmed my initial impression. That they could staff and support those 2. When I brought up the 3rd category, the 3rd item, you just feel the tension in the air from the team of, and he's going to ask us to do that one too. And instead what I did was I asked him what we could do with that. And kind of the answer was not much. But they didn't want to say that because it's kind of traditional push down and just say yes. What I came up with though and proposed to the team was there's someone outside of our group that I think can hit the high priority needs and information from that effort. It's 5% of the task. The other 95% won't be done, but I think that other resource, I can work with them, get them to go down that path far enough where it addresses the core needs that we have at the moment. And then when we clear the 2 out of 3 items off our plate, we can focus on that 3rd item, the remaining 95%, plus the new tasks open up at that stage. The team loved that, but that was not just myself, but our customer and internal management accepting the pace that we communicated was reasonable. It was still a challenge, and being challenged is okay, but being overworked consistently leads to burnout, less efficiency, and certainly less performance. The other key that I had that I really got from the Agile people I talked to is basically making people accountable, um, understanding people, listening to people, not just from your team, but the customers, respecting those people. There's a huge people focus there. People as opposed to just blindly churning things through a process. Um, and again, I don't think it has to be agile to have a people focus. Regardless of your process and your language and your roles, you can prioritize people and not just bulldoze them as you're attempting to accomplish what you desire. So I think these are good points of emphasis and maybe different than what a lot of companies are doing. And that's what I gather from talking to people that are implementing Agile is these are really cool and useful things. I was fortunate to have some of those experiences without the title. Without calling it Agile, without calling it a Scrum or a Sprint, we were creating quick prototypes. We were, myself and others as project managers, we were in deep into the project, and we realized which requirements were firm and which ones may have some float to them that we could work with if schedule or cost impacts started impacting us. Hopefully you enjoyed this little overview from my perspective about Agile product development. If you believe in these things and would like to see them happen in your current environment or in an Agile environment, let us know at Perry Solutions. We can do a lot to help you develop your products. You can call it what you want. You can use the labels and the roles that you want. The principles are what carries through. The 5P principles from Perry Solutions about Agile can help you develop better products.